What's going on, guys? Andrew Piluk Hockey here, back again with another video. And you can see the title, This Man is Talking About Leaf Trades Again. But this actually could make some sense. Maybe it doesn't make some sense, but that's why you, the viewers, are going to tell me if I'm right or wrong respectfully in the comments. Have conversations between yourself, and I will join in as well. Should the Maple Leafs make a move? Are they going to make a move? Because there's some injuries. There's some stuff going on, and their cap situation is a little bit tricky. And I'll tell you guys how and why they're probably going to get out of this without any real big thing happening. So if you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. Join the squad. I'd love to have you guys here. Tons of Leafs content coming up. I'm ready to go for the season. I'm excited. I'm ready to go. Finally, feeling like hockey is right around the corner, and I'm ready to have some fun with this. But as we know, the Leafs are dealing with a bit of an injury bug right now, and we'll talk about it. We already know about Timothy Liljegren, who probably is going to be out for a couple months. That's a huge blow to the team, because I was looking forward to watching him keep blossoming as a defenseman, keep growing as a blue liner, because he did take some really good steps last year. And now we're also finding out, obviously, Rasmus Sandin still is not signed. We're not just finding that out. I'm talking about the next injury that I'm going to talk about. But Rasmus Sandin still not signed, obviously not injured, but still not signed. And that's concerning, because he's a pretty good hockey player. We need that guy in the lineup. But now, Pierre Engvall. This is from Frank Zaravelli. Injury news. Sources say forward Pierre Engvall will be out for the start of training camp. The team is awaiting reevaluation to set a timeline. Now, it's not out of the question that Engvall is ready to begin the regular season, but it's possible, likely, with a question mark, that he misses a chunk of time. So he's probably thinking that Engvall, with the reevaluation, will probably be out for a little bit longer. Now, it depends on how long that is, because Engvall's contract is over $2 million. Do they think it's long enough to put him on LTIR to start the season? I don't think they want to do that, because they need to accumulate that LTIR space for later on, but we can get to that in other videos. But Pierre Engvall being out sucks, because he is a pretty solid bottom six player, and now that would just add more to the chaos already that's going on, because the Leafs announced that Jake Muzzin will miss the start of camp with back discomfort. He's expected back on the ice next week. Now, I've seen some people already talking about the fact that he was golfing with the Leafs already, and I did notice that. Muzzin is quite injury prone. I was hoping that he was going to go into this season clean bill of health and you know, knock on wood, have a really healthy season, but it looks like he's already missing some time with his back. I have a feeling that this is going to be a common theme, and that the Leafs will probably be without Jake Muzzin when they really need him the most. So if I'm the Maple Leafs, I'm taking the hit at the beginning of the season and just telling this guy, hey, get to 100%. Like, I know he's going to be back on the ice next week, but if he's not feeling 100%, dude, you're skipping camp and you're just going to be back whenever we need you. But then that puts them in a tough spot, because you're going to be out of Jake Muzzin, out of Timothy Liljegren, and potentially out of Rasmus Sandin, which would bring up Victor Mete and Jordy Ben, and I'm not exactly wanting to see them play any long length of time. So that's what we're seeing so far. Here's some lines from the Group 1. Don't look into these lines too much, because, again, they're just going to be... They are auditioning people in different situations to see how well they play. So we've got Bunting, Matthews, Yarncrook, so we'll have to see if Marner ends up back here. Robertson, Kerfoot, Obey Kubel, which is a really interesting line. Aston Reese, who I hope gets signed, Kampf, and Anderson. And then you've got the fighter line, Clifford, Minton, and Simmons. And Shaw and Gogolev, former Guelph Storm here on the fifth line, essentially. On the blue line, Riley Brody, Ben Mete, Kokkonen, Villeneuve. I can always say that name like terribly. Hoffenmeyer, and yet I can say that one. I know that name because he actually punched out a goalie in the OHL when he was sitting on the bench, so keep that in mind. And Miller. And then in the net, Samsonov and Shalgren. It's nice to see Shalgren's name there. I actually really didn't mind him last season. He didn't play that good, but it's just cool to see him back with the squad and getting some work in, because he'll definitely be the starter for the Marlies this year, in my opinion. Now, if we're looking at Group 2, Gaudette, Tavares Marner, so Gaudette getting a bit of a chance to prove what he can do. Malgin, Holmberg, Nylander, that's really interesting. McCann, Blandisi, SDA, Abrazizi, so they're, mixing it up a little bit there. Slager, Douglas, Ellis, Steve, so they're not too sure who's going to be playing on those lines. Giordano, Hall, Dahlstrom, Kroll, that rhymed. Rafea, again, don't want to be disrespectful. Hollowell, Pierre Torino, Petronero, I'm so bad with names, and Hellickson. And that's no disrespect. I'm just absolutely awful with names. Sometimes can't even say my own name if you see in the intros. But there's not too much that you need to look into these lines yet. There's no sense of, getting all worked up over lines, because these are just guys that are trying to get, they're trying to get their feet wet. They're trying to get some looks and see where they fit. So until the lines start to get constructed and you start to see, oh, I think they've played these guys together 3 straight preseason games, that's when you start to go, whoa, okay, maybe they're going to do something here. But I want to talk about a couple things. First of all, the blue line. You're more than likely going to see the top 4 be Riley, Brody, Giordano, Hall to start the season. Now it's on Kyle Dubas to try to get Sandin signed, because I don't want to see a bottom pairing of Ben Mete if Jake Muzzin is not ready to start the season, because I just don't want both those guys playing on the bottom pairing. So I'm really hoping that they can get Muzzin healthy and, knock on wood, maybe miraculously he is 100% in a couple weeks, and he's ready to go to start the season, and then that you sign Rasmus Sandin within the next few days, so that way he's ready to go and you can get him in camp and get him moving. But it doesn't look like that for Sandin right away, which is really disappointing. So the reason why I bring up trades is because the Leafs have a bit of a cap situation, and I'm showing you guys this right now because we're going to mess around with it together. This is definitely not what the lineup's going to look like, but this is just messing with it. So over $2.2 million that they need to move around. Now, I can expect that Kyle Clifford is going to be with the Marlies, or he's going to be traded for future considerations, and that's something you have to consider. Joey Anderson is a good depth piece, but he's more than likely going to be put to the Marlies or traded for future considerations. Wayne Simmons is another guy that I don't think people are ready to get rid of, but at the same time, I don't exactly see how this guy's going to make the team. So again, he could be another option for future considerations, which sounds terrible, but it's just more and more like it's going to be like that, because they just don't have the space to make it happen. So now this is where it gets interesting. Where do you place these guys? Do you give Yarncrook a look on the second line and go with a third line that has just a bunch of guys that are going to play, a more defensive style of game? Or do you, who do you move around here? Because I don't know if I want Kerfoot at center, if I can have him and Kampf together playing on that defensive line with Obe Kubel. And then, of course, you have Michael Bunting. He definitely can't be down there. But this is where it gets really interesting. Where do you play these guys? This is a little bit of fun, because this team actually does look like it could be pretty solid. Do you want Kerfoot as a fourth line center? I don't think so. So this is where do you put Kerfoot there and you put Engvall with Robertson and potentially Gaudette? Where does anybody else fit in? Look at the lines here, right? They're trying a bunch of different things. Aston Reese with Kampf, which means they probably want those two paired together, which then you have to consider him into this lineup as well. So there's definitely some guys that are going to be, going for an audition here. I think Gaudette ultimately could be an odd man out and you replaced him with Aston Reese. That's probably what's going to happen, but you still have to shuffle these guys around quite a bit. Do you give Nick Robertson that look and go with, Yarncrook here instead? There's just so many different options here. And it's going to be very interesting. Do you go with this? I don't know. I don't think they want Obe Kubel on the fourth line. I think they really want to mess with him on the third line here. It's going to be very interesting. But this is just me thinking out loud at this point. I think that more than likely this is what they wanted to go with to start the season on the blue line. But as I said, you're not going to have Liljegren. You might not have Muzzin. It's just going to be a bit of a problem. And that's why they held on to guys like Justin Hall and Alex Kerfoot via trade, because they didn't think that they'd get good enough value back to lose these guys. Now that there's injuries and more of a depth situation here with the forwards, you keep Kerfoot because now it's like, oh, damn, this could be a really decently defensive bottom six. And then, of course, Murray and Samsonov in the net. So what I want to turn over to you guys is seeing this roster and then obviously adding in Aston Reese. What do you think they do? Like, do you think that they make a move, like a couple future consideration moves, or do they go all in and really make a move where they trade a couple guys to free up a bunch of cap space and bring in another young forward? I don't know. You guys let me know. I happen to think that it's going to be very minor future consideration moves, but if the Leafs keep getting injuries here, it's not going to be too good. I'm not really sure what they're going to do, but they have to get under the cap first of all, and then tinker with lines from there. They've got a really, really good bottom six that there's a bunch of different guys that they can mess around with there. They're going to be more driving the play instead and like crashing the net, trashing the boards, trying to strip pucks rather than being a finesse and skill bottom six. These guys play defensively well, but also will retrieve pucks. That's like a Kubel, a Yarn Crook, who maybe, again, it doesn't have to be pure physicality, but they just know how to strip pucks and get it to guys that know how to score. So I'm really excited to see how a new look kind of remade bottom six looks, because there's a lot of interesting names there. Even in Nick Robertson, does he break out? Let me know down below. Tons of things we can talk about. If you are new here, make sure to like this video and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. And I'll see you guys in the next video or stream. Peace.